for that. So I wanted to talk about tonight a little bit about the priority queue system and a lot of the complaints I've seen about it. And I even saw complaints on SVB's let's have the great tank debate too, and they had contenders level player on there talking about the stuff, and they were actually like complaining about the priority queue system too. So this isn't something that like it's only community people complaining about or what. It's like these are professional players bitching about this in a stupid way. And before their stupidity infects everyone, let's sit down. I'm sorry, my hand gestures are just, I'm limited. I'm not used to being so limited like this. We have to talk about it so everyone doesn't start parroting stupid shit. So, and the funny part is we've seen this argument before like 3 times. And so, it's funny. So, let's get started. A bit of the same story, and this is kind of like where you have no idea, guys. I start these, and I'm like, this is just going to be like a 1-page blog post. And then fucking 45 minutes in, every time I'm like, man, I'm at like 2,500 words. What just happened to me? And then I got to shave it down and make it better. This one is, and I even say it down here, I don't consider this one that great, but it is what it is. It has all the meat that I wanted. It may be a little wordy, and I apologize. But we'll start from the top. So it's like a bit of the same story. I wanted a shorter post, but I've decided to include some elements from other historic issues I've seen within the Overwatch community to provide some context and irony/hypocrisy. I'm looking to outline the new priority pass system and my thoughts on it, but more importantly, I'm going to tie in how the community is reacting, how this relates to private profiles, and how ass backwards this is from a couple years ago. Not a real word, but it should be. Final edit, this is where I just put it there. I was like, well, I consider this blog done. I'm not happy with its results, but it's still a good discussion. The video will go over it in better detail, which is this. You're all part of this right now, right here. Congratulations. So let's talk about something objective. Priority Pass is a system that allows a player to queue up competitively in a new flex queue. This queue will put you into the role that's needed most. So whatever is like the highest demand, you're going to get placed right into it. If you queue up this way, you'll get 2 passes on a loss and 6 passes on a win. You can save up to 40 of these passes and can spend them one at a time to bypass the long times in your normal queue. I say DPS queue, but really, like, it's any queue, but let's just say it the way it is. It's the DPS queue. I apologize if these numbers are off or changed. I've waited an hour in the PTR queue, but couldn't get a game to verify the data myself. So the 2 on a loss, 6 on a win is something I got from a forum post. Again, I kind of queued up while I was writing this blog, and I could not find a game in the flex queue on the PTR. I just couldn't get it. So the premise is simple. The system's to encourage players to play more needed roles and to get queue time shorter across the board. The community needs to understand that the queue times are by far the biggest issue in Overwatch. Bigger than balance, guys. It really is. Nearly all other modern games take a fraction of time to queue up while needing less players in a casual environment. This has chased off a lot of big streamers and DPS players, hurting Overwatch's visibility and reputation. Accessibility is the key feature of Overwatch, and right now queues are limiting this concept more than anything. Remember that all of our balance talk, detailed maps, time and effort put in doesn't mean a damn thing if no one can play the game. Blizzard has stated this. Queue times are the biggest issue in Overwatch. And us as a community have to understand, even though like I probably deal with some of the worst queue times possible. Even if I had a higher SR and had like less people to play with, I think because I'm avoided so much, I think I have some of the worst queue times in the game. And even then, I'm just like, yeah, fuck it, I'll just wait 15 minutes. But other people don't, and understand when people want to not fight, but shoot in an FPS, they're not going to wait 10 minutes. They're just going to play another game. So keeping like player retention is important, because if we don't retain players, then all this shit that we talk about all the time doesn't matter. Now about the system, everyone's immediate concern, and I've seen this on Overwatch forums, like the BattleNet Cancer forums, Overwatch competitive, Overwatch like Reddit, all of them. Everyone's immediate concern is that players will pick pick the flex and then throw for passes. But I don't see much of a difference with this than the abuse we see with the current SR system in win trading. All systems can be abused, but that does not mean we should not use them. So this is the only complaint I can really see besides the bigger one below about the new system. And I get that there's a worry that people will abuse the new system, but understand every system in Overwatch is abused. There's the joke of the 6 stack at 4 a.m. It's not even a joke. That's what they did. They got like rank 1 through 6 on the ladder. Every system can be abused. That doesn't mean like we just immediately look at the negatives and say we shouldn't do it. There's a negative. We have to weigh the positive and the balances, positives and the negatives. So the positive is everyone's play time or queue time will drop dramatically, which inherently will make the games. It's going to inherently make the games less like attached to it. I've had a talk with my buddy who designs games as well, like a legit game developer, and he was like, "Well, you know, he's from the fighting game community, and he's like, no one takes ladder seriously there. Like, and even if you lose, no one gives a shit. The whole thing is like." In the fighting game community, games are very quick. It's like a 10-minute deal. In Overwatch, we're talking like 25 minutes. If you play Dota like I did, and you have a 45 to an hour-minute game, like you're tied, you're invested, and you're like, I don't want to lose this because if I lose this, that sucks. I wasted like 45 minutes of my life. So by getting more games in and lowering queue times, we actually make hopefully overall the community less toxic because yeah, you lost the game, but you queue up, bam, you're right into another game. Perfect. So I see that as one of the biggest boons to the system. But I understand that people will quote unquote throw, and I have to put that in quotes. Because remember, I was considered a thrower because I played Junkrat, right? So what people say is throwing doesn't mean shit, right? I can play Hammond, and look, I'm not a good Hammond, I'll admit it. But my tank SR reflects that, right? So I'm at the SR I should be at by playing, only Hammond. You may think I'm throwing, but that's where I belong. I'm actually trying, I just suck at the hero. So I go on, we have to assume the player will play to their ability, so they're not going to throw. And again, if people are like, but they will. And I'm like, well, no, we have to assume they won't, because if they're always throwing, then you report them, or they're just dropping SR. They'll get to where they should be. Like any other competitive match. If they throw, then it's no difference than throwing on their main role. Reports should be submitted, and Blizzard will have to make the call on if they're sabotaging the game. We also have to assume the MMR system will put them at their proper level for their role. I've heard a lot of complaints. They're like, oh, but a guy at 4200 DPS should be 4200 on his tank. And most of the time, they aren't. And if they are, they've worked for it, and they deserve to be there. I get that when roll queue first happened, the MMR system made this adjustment, and it's like, we're going to assume if you're 4200 on DPS and we have no tank data, you're roughly around that mark. But at this point, if people start playing, and obviously they're not at that level, they're going to lose. The MMR system does work, and it will put them where they should be. And I've heard arguments that some DPS players placed high on their tank and don't belong there. The MMR system will eventually put them where they should be. I fucking got ahead of myself. Overall, I see no more abuse in the new system than what we currently have. It may be a bit chaotic at first, with new players picking up tank and support heroes, but the system will even out. It is not a valid complaint to be upset that we have new players in other roles. By far and large, everyone that's upset, they're like, I don't want non-tank players in the tank play like you. Fuck off. That's the purpose of the game. That's how the game works. If we want queues to be better, we have to get other players into other queues. That's it. So people upset at new players playing other things, it's not a valid complaint. I don't even think about it. So next on the system itself, we need to design a system not just to incentivize, but to change player behavior in the long term. So so they'll be more open to playing these roles without a reward. This is the purpose of any system I see in any game. So the whole, what the fuck's it called when you at the bottom and you can rate people and you're a good teammate. I forgot what that is because I never use it. At first, people actually did this. They're like, oh, maybe I'll be a little bit better of a person and do this. The idea is even when they're not rewarded, endorsements. Thank you. Even when they're not getting endorsed, they'll still practice this good behavior because that's what they did. Like you designed a system to make people behave a certain way, and eventually they'll just behave that way. Hopefully, right? And that's what this system is also doing. So don't think of it as just a way to get players into more queues. Think of it as actually as like a long-term, hopeful, behavioral change for people to play other roles. The largest hurdle to get players to attempt a new behavior is short-term gain. Right now, the short-term gain is the enjoyment of the game, and that's what players value most. There's no way to put it. There's no other way to put it. Since the player is enjoying the game less this way, with the new, by flexing to a role they don't want to play, we're trying to substitute some displeasure with a reward also in the short term. So we're just like, all right, you don't enjoy this now, but in the short term, meaning the next hour, you're going to be able to enjoy something that you really enjoy faster. You'll get it better. So it's kind of a short-term for short-term switch. Understand that it's not a short-term reward for a long-term something. It's pretty even. You want to keep these things close, just because players can relate better to it and people can relate just better overall. This is why to encourage this behavior, you must reward them in the worst-case scenario, or players will never adopt the new behavior. So I've heard some crazy shit saying 2 passes on a loss is too much. That people are just going to throw and they're rewarded for it, and it's bullshit. The problem is that people that are using the system legitimately, if you do not give them 2 passes on a loss, they will never use it because it's so detrimental. And I kind of explain it here. Think of it this way. An average game in Overwatch is around 20 minutes. This means on a loss, Blizzard needs to compensate that in terms of queue times to some degree. DPS queues on average are around 8 to 10 minutes. For me, I can't speak for others. Times are probably lower at SR ranges where there are more players. In my personal case, this can be as long as 15 minutes. We don't know how fast the passes will make queue times, so let's assume 3 to 5 minutes, right? If you're in the priority pass, let's assume 5 minutes. This means if I get a loss in the flex queue and I get 2 5-minute queues from the passes, I've saved the exact amount of time I spent in-game. As ironic as this is, I would benefit most from the priority pass with a 100% transfer of time from flex game to DPS queue. And I say 10 minutes saved per queue, 20 minutes spent in the game. So if I play tank for 20 minutes, I am rewarded, even on a loss, 2 passes, which I then save 10 minutes for. And I'm just going to say, and probably the worst case scenario or the best case, how you're looking at it. This is the best case scenario for myself. Nearly all other players will have a less efficient transfer of time since their queues are significantly lower than mine. For your average player, getting 2 passes on a loss is technically not worth their time, right? Because they queue faster than me. So if they queue in 5 minutes and instead they queue in 2 minutes, well, they've only saved 6 minutes worth of their time for a 20-minute game, right? They've lost 75% of that value. Anything lower will non-incentivize the system to a degree where no one uses it. On a win, the system saves a significant amount of time for everyone. For me, it could save double the time I spend in the flex queue. So this is why, and I'm the best case scenario for this example. If I play in the flex queue and I get a loss, I still save the time I put in. So when people are like, it should be 0, and it's like, no. Understand, I'm the best case. In the worst case, people are going to flex and save a couple minutes for their loss. If it is any worse than that, no one's going to fucking use it. The entire system's shit, and no one would ever do it. So that's why I'm saying you have to compensate the player somehow. And 2 passes is the correct amount. Again, for your average player, it's not a proper transition of time, but 6 passes on a win, you definitely save time that way, I think, no matter what queue you have. At the end of the day, all I have to ask is, do we want more tank players and support players or not? And please, these are the common arguments I always hear. We cannot encourage more non-DPS players simply by making more tanks or support heroes. This is an FPS, and at the end of the day, you will always have more players that will want to play damage than others. Most MMOs are a good example of this, with extra rewards for support and tank players queuing up in raids. It's not the amount of heroes or how fun they are. It's about players playing what they want. Jeff said it this way. It's like ice cream flavors, right? If more people want vanilla, you can't be like, you guys suck. Vanilla sucks. You don't make vanilla worse. You don't create more flavors because people still like vanilla. You just have to make vanilla more accessible to everyone. Or incentivize buying other flavors, right? It's just because everyone likes vanilla doesn't mean it's wrong. Yeah, the amount of players doesn't matter, or the amount of heroes they have doesn't matter. Anything, all that doesn't matter. It's an FPS, guys. We want to fight, and this is actually one of the cruxes of Overwatch. Another blog post, can talk about it in a bit. Personally, I feel like this is the right amount of passes on a loss and a win. Losses are a net loss for nearly everyone, except me, but not so punishing that you'll avoid using the system. A win provides a significant amount of time for all players. It may get a little messy at first with players queuing up, queuing up for new roles, but the MMR system will eventually get them where they need to be. Anyone abusing the system will be fairly obvious since their ranks will drop sharply, allowing Blizzard to pick up on any trends in data that they can then act on. So if everyone starts throwing to abuse the system, you don't think everyone, Blizzard's going to be like, wow, everyone's SR on tank is dropping by like thousands, but their DPS queues are great. Like, they're going to notice that. So I really think the system's good. I think the amount of passes are correct where they're at, and I think it's great. But all that being said, I do see one issue, and I've put this on Twitter, that could come about. And I call it Q storms just because of I'm in IT, so if there's networking storms or DNS storms or any kind of DDoS or stuff like that, essentially it's when a system kind of loops in on itself and it just kind of feeds the wrong thing and it creates like just a massive traffic or anything like that. In our case, this would be Q storms. All players are gaining passes to use on the DPS queue. Let's fucking say it. No one's going to earn a pass on tank and be like, I want to queue up for tank faster and use a pass on tank. And if they all, so they're all gaining passes to use on the DPS queue. And if they spent them at the same time, it would increase the queue times overall. So if we have 1,000 people on support, 1,000 people on tank, and like 3,000 people on DPS, if 50% of all player bases earn their passes and then spend them at the same time, you're going to have 500 on DPS, or 500 on tank, 500 on support, and then you're going to have 4,000 on DPS. And why this is bad, just like, immediately it's like, okay, we've now made the DPS queue worse. But it gets worse than worse. Those DPS players that do not have a pass will be put behind all those players in the queue, causing an even larger increase in queue times, purely dependent on when players spend their passes. So if you're a DPS player and you don't use the pass system, when everyone uses their passes, you're put behind them. If you don't use this system, there's going to be a group of people, depending on when people spend their passes, it's going to get a lot worse. I'm not sure how likely this is to happen, but we're introducing a type of currency into the game. And if everyone spends their currency 7 days into the system, the market will be flooded. In our case, this flood would replace the current queue system, and anyone without passes would be left behind. If everyone has priority, no one does. I don't know how many people work in IT or a desk job, and if anyone just goes, this work has to be escalated. And if everyone fucking says that, and I've said this before, and I've said it to managers and just high-level people, I go, guys, if everything's a fire, nothing's a fucking fire, right? Like, it doesn't work that way. If everything is escalated and important, then nothing is. So if everyone has priority queue, then no one has priority queue. Well, except for the people that don't have priority queue, and they're even screwed even more now. And DPS players are notorious. And let me just finish this up. I said, let's face it, DPS players are notorious for not wanting to play other roles, even if they get placed instantly. they'll more likely quit or play another game during these times. So when a queue storm does happen, DPS players aren't going to go, oh, this is a perfect time for me to flex and I can earn passes and this is going to be great. What they're going to do is they're going to go, this is stupid. I'm going to play another game, and they're going to quit. So why write a blog for something so simple? How can there be controversy about a feature that's good for the community? You guessed it. The community is upset, again, in the most hypocritical way. So let's look at why they're pissed. Why? It's the internet. In any type of PvP game, people are pissed. Just for anything. It's the status of the internet. The primary complaint that has been talked about across all SR ranges, including 4400 plus, so these are the contenders level players that are complaining about the same thing, is that tank players or anyone else don't want DPS players to play a tank or support on their team. Right? Everyone's like, I don't want a DPS player playing tank. He sucks. So I go, all right, so let's think about this pre-roll queue for a minute. The community praised professional players that could play multiple heroes because of how difficult it was, yet on the latter, they condemned anyone who couldn't do the same. It was commonly said that if you can't play all the roles at your top SR, then you didn't deserve to be there. Right? We've all seen this. I'm like, yeah, I play Junkrat at 4,500. And everyone's like, yeah, what's your tank? I'm like, I don't know, 3? And they're like, then you don't deserve it. You suck as a player. I'm like, yeah, but it's hard to play all the heroes. And they're like, yes, it is, and you should do it. And I'm like, all right, so you praise the Overwatch League players because it's so difficult, but everyone else is just like, fuck off? And you're like, yeah, that's what the community believes. We get to the reason why below. On top of that, they constantly spoke about how the developers said the game was designed for swapping heroes and to fill what role was needed. Yet, when players did that and didn't do well, they were told they were responsible for each loss. The problem pre-roll queue was that if you wanted to practice, you needed to buy another account or quick play. And quick play I don't consider legit training because no one can guarantee the skill level of it. Right? People just fuck around. There's nothing to win, nothing to lose. It's just to fuck around. So it was a catch-22 situation, and the community didn't care or doesn't care about skill growth. They only care about wins and how high they can pad their SR. Post-roll queue, and we're in the opposite situation instantly, but with the same core complaint. It's not about being able to play all heroes, it's about sticking to your role and your queue. Right now everyone's like, stay in your role, stop playing other things, get good at that one thing, stop fucking around. You play anything else, you're throwing. So, you feel it's like the same tone, it's the same complaint, but the situation, literally 180. It's not being able to play all heroes, it's about sticking to your role and your queue. If a player picks a different role, they're usually looked down on, and if they don't perform, if they don't perform properly. Again, they're a blame for not taking the game seriously. I got a typo, and for throwing. We've even seen public complaints from contenders and other tier 2 tank players that they don't want other roles to queue into their games as a tank player. So we have a little bit of hypocrisy there. It doesn't matter if you like it or not. If someone has earned the appropriate SR, then they deserve to be where they're at. The MMR system isn't perfect, but over time it will get players to the appropriate spot. All of these complaints are echoed in the community, but there's one more situation where we hear the same sounding complaints. I don't know why I'd have a question mark there, but complaints? Private profiles. Get out of here. Private profiles came out in June of 2018, a year before roll queue in July of 2019. What's the primary complaint about public profiles? The most legitimate claim is that players want to know what their role partner plays so that they can set up a better strategy around it. If I'm a Mercy player and I notice this other person on the team with a private profile, I can't see what they want to play, but I want to play around what they can do. How else can I see but looking at their profile? Well, I could ask them, right? I could ask in voice, chat, or simply seeing what hero they pick, right? I could not pick a hero and wait for them to pick one. Apparently, all of these methods are too hard for the community, and they need public profiles. And I just cut the bullshit here. The real answer is that they want to know if someone is throwing by playing a hero that they don't normally play. It's primarily a tool to find excuses and to place the blame. There's a lot of stigma behind playing a hero you normally don't, and how it qualified as throwing by parts of the community. This forced players to be pressured into playing a single hero, and Blizzard stepped in and did something about it. We joke about Brig Jail or whatever jail. This was actually the community enforcing a type of jail because you weren't allowed to play anything else because you weren't good at anything else. And if you played anything else, whether it was because you just wanted to or enjoyed it, no, it was throwing and you should be reported. I could go into more ways the community is a bit shit, but I'll stop here for today because all of these topics really come from the same issue. Players are upset when they lose and want a scapegoat, so they look for anything different or breaks a pattern. The problem is that this is Overwatch. You can pick any hero at any time, and that's how the game works. This aligns with the core fundamental of Overwatch, which is accessibility. Someone wanting to play tank today and DPS tomorrow is a perfectly valid way to play the game competitively, and by all means, this should be encouraged more than anything. Yet the vocal minority of the community constantly complains that they aren't paired up with someone who shares the same mindset and purpose as they do. The ladder isn't a tournament, it's a training environment. I talk about the purpose of the ladder here, but it's about skill generation and getting better. Winning is a part of it, but is not the sole purpose. And I talk about this in this post, this other post, a lot. You have to get, and I just want to stop here for one other thing. Overwatch is designed to play different heroes, and even though I one trick and you're like, but Chro, you're not doing this. You're clearly not playing the way the game is. No, I play it the way it is, but I just stick to my hero and I have fun. I enjoy it. I play what hero I want to, and that's the real purpose of Overwatch. Pick a hero, whatever hero, and play it whenever you want. If you want to play DPS one game and tank another, that's how the game's designed. Like that's how it should work. You play whatever you want to play. I don't know how else to play it. Like that's what it is. So it's really weird that a lot of these people are like pissed off that you're doing this, right? And I kind of wrap it up with this paragraph, and I say you have to get over the fact that you cannot control anyone else. All you can control is yourself. The faster you learn this, the faster you'll have a happier life. Take everything on the ladder as a learning opportunity, and then find a stack of 6 of like-minded players to form a team with. When you're in a controlled team like that, you'll notice you can do everything the complaints are looking for and what you wish the ladder to be. You know what heroes your team plays best. You know what heroes they would rather play for fun, and you'll actually have some say in what they should do. This is the level of teamwork and sacrifice that a tournament environment is needed for, but is not meant for the ladder, nor should it be. Take it from an old man who just wants to play a competitive game the way he wants to at the end of the day. I don't want the drama of a team, nor can I afford the time commitment of it. What I want is a competitive environment where I know people are at risk of losing something so that they'll play to their ability instead of dicking around. This is the entire problem with the perception of the ladder, is that people think it should be tournament level everything. You get on there, you do your calls, you play a strategy that I guess the person complaining picks, right? Because it's always argued from a point, it's like, you should play this. But it's never like, what am I doing, right? It's always the argument's always from the person saying what should be done. And I always think that's like, well, why is what you say should be done, right? I say I should always play Junkrat and we should do that. You know, our points are actually equally valid because it's just a fucking game. There's no like one right answer, and if we start having an answer, that's when we start having a meta and we start hating the game because we have to play it that way. Yeah, I mean that's it. Do I have any questions or comments in chat? Do people like this thing? Do people hate this thing? This hits a couple things that I've noticed wrong with the community for a while, but I never put it into words. Will there be a quiz later? There will not be. I can make one. But I won't.